I was sitting in the courthouse hallway when her lawyer finally walked past me, smiling like he'd already won. He didn't look at me. None of them ever did. But the judge did. A slow, questioning glance over his glasses, the kind reserved for people who don't belong in the room they're standing in. Maybe he expected me to panic, break, plead. I didn't. I just placed the envelope on the table when my case was called. One motion, one soundless gesture. My hands didn't shake, not after 15 years. Not after the night she left those boys at my door like a bag of groceries she didn't want to carry anymore. 2 hours, she'd said, her smile too sweet, her breath too steady, the door closing behind her too soft for the kind of goodbye she meant. I should have known. I didn't, not then. But suspicion has a way of carving itself into your bones, shaping you into something colder, sharper. When the judge opened the envelope, he didn't speak. He didn't have to. He just leaned back, slowly, as if distance might soften whatever truth I had laid bare. That was the moment I knew the tide had shifted, not because I'd exposed her, but because I'd finally exposed myself, the part of me she spent years trying to bury, the part that remembers everything and forgets nothing. It started long before the lawsuit, long before the courthouse. It began with a whisper of doubt I tried to ignore. The boys were growing. Same eyes, same fears, same quiet way of folding themselves small when life got loud. Not mine by blood, she'd told me that early, as if rehearsed, but mine in every way that mattered. I fed them, carried them, sat through their nightmares when she didn't bother to come home. But the betrayal wasn't in leaving them with me. It was in the years after, the sudden reappearance, polished and perfect, pretending motherhood had always been in her bones. She'd show up at holidays with gifts she didn't wrap, holding boys she didn't raise. Take a picture, she'd say, placing herself in the center, like absence could be edited out with enough lighting. I watched, silent, studying the way she tilted her head before lying, the way her smile never reached her eyes. Then came the day she filed the case. Kidnapping, she claimed, as if I'd stolen them from her life, as if she hadn't tossed them into mine like a burden she was too exhausted to carry. I read the accusation once, then again. My heart didn't break, it calcified. And beneath that hardening, something darker moved, a quiet certainty that she wasn't done, that the woman I once tried to love had one more performance left in her. She thought she'd win because she had the story. She didn't realize I had the truth, and the truth, when handled correctly, cuts much deeper than lies. I didn't confront her. I didn't accuse. I didn't shout. Noise is a weapon for people who have nothing else. I had patience and memory. I began with phone records, backdated custody notes, emergency contact forms with her signature missing, school letters addressed only to me, receipts, years of them, showing she never paid for food, clothes, school fees, medicine, not once. Then came the texts she forgot existed, screenshots, timestamps, her messages telling me to keep them tonight, handle it, figure it out, while she disappeared into whatever life she lived without us. I printed everything, organized it, stacked it into a quiet monument of her absence, each page a reminder of who actually stayed. The boys sensed something shifting. Kids always do. But I kept my voice steady, routine unchanged, breakfast at 7, lights out at 9. The world might have been cracking open, but inside that apartment, nothing trembled. Then I found the last piece, a signed statement from the building manager confirming the night she abandoned them. 2 hours, she'd said. 2 hours that turned into 15 years. I placed that at the top of the folder, the crown of her undoing, and waited. No drinking, no rage, just calculation. A slow, disciplined burn. I wasn't preparing for a fight. I was preparing for a burial. When the evidence arrived from the records office, it felt almost anticlimactic. Clean envelopes, official stamps, cold, factual language. I read each line once, then again, just enough to let the weight settle, not enough to reopen old wounds. The hearing was quiet, too quiet. She walked in wearing confidence like borrowed jewelry, shiny, fragile, ready to crack. When I approached her table, she smirked. Ready to give them back? I placed the folder in front of her, said nothing, just watched the color drain from her face as she opened it. Page after page, lie after lie. A decade of neglect staring back at her in black ink. Her hands shook first, then her voice. Then the entire version of motherhood she'd built collapsed under its own fiction. I stayed still, detached, almost bored. Truth has a way of making noise without raising a sound. When her lawyer asked to speak privately, I declined. There was nothing left to negotiate, nothing left to hide. The judge reviewed the final page, the abandonment statement, and looked at her like she was a stranger trespassing inside her own lie. "Do you dispute this?" he asked. She opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again. No sound. Silence is a verdict, and she delivered it herself. I leaned toward her, just enough for her to hear. "You shouldn't have come back." Not a threat, a truth. A simple, devastating truth. The case ended before noon. Custody affirmed. Claims dismissed. Her reputation shattered so cleanly, even she didn't try to gather the pieces. Outside, the air felt different, sharper, colder, like the world had finally shifted back into its rightful shape. I didn't wait for her, didn't look back. There's no victory in watching someone drown in a sea they filled themselves. The boys were already home when I arrived, laughing, arguing, alive. No trace of the storm that had nearly swallowed us. I stood there a moment, letting the noise wash over me. Not warmth, not joy, just the certainty that I had kept a promise I never said out loud. 15 years ago, she walked away. Today, I did. The difference is simple. I didn't leave anything behind worth regretting.